Chariots coming. The chariots coming. Swing low, swing low.
So, hey, this is Rashad, co host of the Refocus Show with episode 2. Today, we're meeting with Eric and Sal from, I call y'all the world famous Smash Brothers. Reason why I call y'all the world famous Smash Brothers, every time when I saw your thing, I was like, oh, it made me think of Beat Nuts for some reason. I hear Beat Nuts right now, and I'm like the Smash Brothers. And then see your guitar, I was like, oh, yeah, this is perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
so then definitely. But first, I want to go ahead and I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself and your brother to our audience. Uh, Whoever want to go first, all ears.
Well, okay. Well, I'm Sal, and I'm the oldest of the two. And this is Eric, and we just got in. We've always been into collecting.
The
My brother
handsome
has
one.
his own lane. I got my own lane, but we always seem to just kind of do it together. You know, um, especially when we moved to Arizona, we really didn't know anybody, so we
Mhm.
kind of, we would walk to buy gold basketball cards in Tempe to the Scottsdale store through the golf course and buy basketball cards.
Wow.
It was a fishing
Actually,
shop. They sold
yeah, yeah,
props and like lifesavers and everything for going out on a boat.
Hmm.
And they happened to have a little section that had basketball cards. So we
yeah.
started
Upper deck,
picking up basketball
skybox.
cards. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me ask you this. Hold on. That's something new. I didn't
Yeah,
even
you
know
know,
that
right?
about y'all. That's okay. So you y'all buying cards. What were you?
Yeah.
Okay, the basketball cards. Who were you collecting? Who was your favorite player? Let's talk about that real quick.
The goat.
Well,
The
I
goat.
mean, it's a gold. That to me was the golden era. I mean, right after Michael Jordan exploded, I mean, NBA became global.
Right.
And I mean, I can still name you the 1991-92 team, the Charlotte Hornets team. Muggsy Bogues, Kendall Gill, David Wingate, Larry Johnson, and Lonzo Mourning. I
Yep.
mean, with Del Curry as sharpshooter,
Yep.
Scott Burrell, I
Rex
mean,
Chapman.
Rex Chat,
Yep.
it to me that's when, yeah, the NBA just kind of catapulted. And, obviously it was Michael Jordan that opened the door.
Hmm.
Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson and Dr. J kind of paved the way, but
Right.
Michael Jordan came in, and I don't think anybody was expecting Michael Jordan to turn into the player globally. Like, we knew he was good, but what
Hmm.
he became an icon.
True.
You know,
True. But you got to remember
yeah,
though. Here's the thing. When you said used to go to the store and buy cards. Okay, now you lived in Chicago and now
yeah,
you're in Arizona. Think about it. You were still going to the store to go buy these things and everything,
yes,
like hunting and looking for them and everything, um, which is interesting. Let's talk about now. Okay, so went ahead, Sal. Eric,
yeah.
tell me a little bit about yourself, about um, who you want to tell us about you, what you collected, everything.
Oh well, like I said, my brother was always the older one.
Hmm.
So, I kind of followed on behind him with everything that he had. When it came to like music, at the time I didn't have any of my own music taste, so I kind of was listening to whatever he was listening to. When you're
Hmm.
young, you pick up and you hear whatever everyone else is doing, you get
Right.
a little piece of that. So you don't formulate your own taste until, later. So at the time, like, whatever my brother was kind of into, I was kind of into too.
Hmm.
So yeah, we got into when we were in Chicago, is when when I first learned of Michael Jordan, and then
Hmm.
the Chicago Bulls, and being that the whole family's from Chicago,
Hmm.
if you don't root Chicago, you basically get disowned. Um, so I became a fan. Started getting interested in the teams and everything, and then
Hmm.
by the time we moved to like California and then over here,
Hmm.
it was already that three-peat, and I had started, younger, obviously,
Hmm.
watching cartoons and whatnot. So,
Hmm.
I'd have my own like little toys here and there. I wouldn't say it was a collection because it was everything that I played with. And
Hmm.
if it broke, you kind of, when you're little, you just kind of cast it off.
Right.
But sometimes you get a new one, sometimes you don't. And sometimes a friend brings over, something that you didn't know about.
Hmm.
And then, but we got really into like sports at that time. Any young boy growing up, you start getting into sports, especially pre-internet.
Hmm.
When you used to go outside and play, and then you came home when the lights came on.
Mhm.
That was the whole routine. So you'd be playing sports, and you'd be out there at the park emulating like your favorite, like sports stars.
Right.
Trying to score a touchdown, running like Deion Sanders, or trying to stick the tongue out like Michael Jordan.
Right.
So you start doing all that. So we started collecting basketball cards. It's one of those things that we got into like a
Mhm.
little bit. Just I happened to be, I think it was for me personally. It was one of those stop and goes in California,
Mhm.
and they had like basketball cards like packed for like 75 cents, and I remember
Right.
buying like 2 packs. And then like my brother's like, oh, you got these players. So then from there on, it just started like, well, I got to go get some more now. So you
Yep.
start collecting more cards, and then obviously at that point, the only player I knew the most of was Michael Jordan. But then you start learning about everybody else. Magic
Right.
Johnson, Larry Bird, Brad Doherty. Like basically every team had their one All Star.
Right. Right.
And you start learning about all of that, and that kind of progressed as we moved over here to Arizona. As my
Mhm.
brother said, we didn't know a whole lot of people, so there was a lot of those moments where it was just me and him hanging out. And so we just went on
Right.
walks, and then one day we walked by that store, and it happened to say like propeller props, and then it said sports cards. So we're like, just go in there and check it out real quick.
Right.
And that's when we started buying like a lot of cards, especially like the Michael Jordan cards. We started picking them up,
Okay.
and then that's it. Kind of like escalated from there.
Good. Okay. I like that. Thank you for sharing that. And that's a good segue. With the name Smash Brothers, how did you come up with the name?
I came up out of the ether, really. I mean, the whole when I started doing, when we did our first show, I really, we were talking about names, and it just came up, Smash Bros. We're brothers, and then I kept on remembering, Mario Brothers,
Right.
and I'm like, well, Smash Bros.
Right.
I took a little bit of, like the Bash Brothers from Mighty Ducks.
Mhm.
It was just a combination. Like I said, it's just like Smash Bros. That actually sounds kind of cool. And I pitched it to my brother, and he's like, yeah, I kind of dig it. And then,
Yeah.
my wife and him worked out on the kind of like the logo.
Right.
I want to give it a, I wanted to give it like a font that people would like. If you saw the name, it took you back to those, that's why like the Nintendo font with the Sega. Like I want
Right.
people to kind of like, we're not copying, but we're trying to when you see it visually, want to take you back to that moment when you saw the
Right.
Sega logo and you bought your first Sega system or your
Right.
Nintendo or whatever toy line you were into. Like that
Right.
takes you back to that moment. Like, oh yeah, I get that. I get the logo. I get the letters. I get
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
nostalgia. But I pretty much, yeah, sometimes I tend to procrastinate from time to time. So a lot of times I do things. I don't wouldn't say that I rush myself, but I kind of put myself in that spot, and then just things just all of a sudden, like click, and then I start doing things just out of ease, just I don't know. It's just kind of the way I've always been.
Right. Definitely. No, I can
I'm
respect that.
never. I'm not a creative. Or I'm not an organized creator. I'm more of a chaotic creator. When there's chaos, that's when I thrive.
I can actually relate to that. I think Dion, he can definitely say that when I first got into music production,
Yeah.
I was organized noise. It's like me. That was me,
Yeah.
big time. So, good. Thank you for sharing that, especially with that. And I actually immediately when I saw the logo. The funny part is when I met you all, when I was at the store, not at the store, at the show, when I met you all and everything, I had my daughter and I had my partner with me, and then got a chance to hear your names and stuff like that. I was like, Smash Bros. I was like, I didn't think of like Super Mario. I was just thinking like, man, okay, they selling toys, Smash. I was like, oh, I was thinking like cars, Smash,
Yeah.
Matchbox, Hot Wheels, things like that. So then when I saw
Which-
your logo, I was just like, oh, duh. I was like, that's even cool too. Yeah.
But see, that was the intent, though, right? You're thinking Hot Wheels, so I want people to look at our names and take them to whatever conjures
Right.
in their mind, right? Because that's the good thing about collecting toys, or if you're into music, is you hark back to those moments where you went to the record store, you went to the toy store, and it takes you to that moment, right? And like I said, it doesn't have to be the exact same thing, but you see the name or you talk to us and you transport it back to those days, because I mean, it was talk about a community,
Right.
whether it be music, whether it be toys, collecting sports cards, swapping, baseball cards. I got, Ken Griffey. What do you got over there? I got the Nolan Ryan. Okay, well, I got two
Yeah,
of
let's
these.
make a trade. Yeah,
Make it right,
definitely.
That was my intent, to have something like a song, something catchy.
Right? Sorry, that was it's actually James from Polar Bear. That's funny. I like. That's a weird random call. Question for you. Okay, now we're collecting figurines and vintage toys. Let's have you tell the people what items you enjoy toy hunting and collecting. Whoever want to start off and speak about it.
All right,
You go ahead. All right. Me personally, I like to collect everything that that kind of more harks back to the childhood. Nothing. I'm not. My brother's he's the completionist. I buy like pieces of everything. So I don't have like a full say collection of like the Transformers. I
Mhm.
collect the ones that I thought were like the most awesome ones, or the ones that I really wanted and couldn't have, or the ones that I had. So I tend to have like a little bit of everything. I know some people are strictly vintage, some people are only modern. Some people only collect the Funkos, but for me personally, like if I see something that I just think is freaking awesome, I just want to go get it. So I tend to kind of bounce around. So like one day I'll be looking at picking up something from Brave Star, and the other day I'm looking at something from Robotech. Like I'm just bouncing around back and forth. When it comes to like my collecting, I tend to be a little bit more chaotic because I wouldn't say I have like a large collection of one specific thing, but I definitely have a little bit of like one or two things here of almost everything. Especially
Gotcha.
things that more hit with me from when I was little. So those are the things I tend to collect on. So same
Okay.
thing when it comes to like basketball cards, it'll be like Michael Jordan.
Gotcha.
When it comes to like certain collectibles, I'm a huge like mech fan. So if it's like a something robotic that looks like a mech, like I just love that. I dig that stuff. So anything from like Exo Squad, Robotech. I have like one of the Joy toys just because I think that thing looked awesome. So if it's like looking like mechanical, like even old school, I just love that stuff.
I can respect that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, for me, I've always kind of been a collector. It was with music first. It was basketball cards and music. My brother can tell you. I don't know how many accounts I had with Columbia CD or in cassette. I would order the 12 and never follow through. BMG.
You send the penny in when you had to tape
I
it
was
on.
14, 15, and they allowed me to do that, and they sent me CDs and cassettes.
Then you
You
get the
know,
bill for $115.
you know. So I've always been a bit of a collector and then when I met my wife, and she was getting ready to get her classroom and teach, she wanted to do a superhero themed classroom.
Okay.
So that's when I bought my first Funko. And me and my wife were collecting Funkos, which one of the reasons why we did the toy show to get rid of some of these Funkos. But we started collecting Funkos, and then it just became a mess. Then when my wife became pregnant, which is kind of odd because all these little childhood memories started coming back to me, which is kind of
Right.
weird. Because I was watching my wife, as she was progressing in the pregnancy more and more and more. All these memories that I hadn't thought about, events, as a kid, started coming up. Our childhood wasn't the greatest childhood,
Right.
with our father, but all these good moments that started coming back when my wife was pregnant was me and my brother always around toys.
Gotcha.
That's when we had our thing. And
Gotcha.
so I just started off collecting I just wanted to collect first the toys that I had, because
Right.
when we moved to California, we brought as many toys as we could from Texas to Chicago, but we couldn't carry those to California, so they stayed in an
Gotcha.
attic and they just got lost.
No problem.
So a lot of those toys got lost. So like I said, when my wife was pregnant, I started going back to collecting just the stuff that I remember we had.
Okay. What was
And,
like some
I
of the things
started
you
with
were
Wheeljack.
collecting?
That was my first Transformer.
Okay.
Wheeljack and Ironhide was his first Transformer. And it just progressed from there. And then, obviously I would buy music from eBay, so then my search changed from cassettes and rarities to Transformers G1 and I bought my first constructor because we never had the combiners, a complete combiner. There was always a smorgasbord of different ones because we bought the coolest one. We never really were completionists.
Right.
But I never had Devastator, for example. So I started, I bought a couple on eBay and then I went to the toy box. I don't know if you ever been to the toy box.
Yeah, I have.
And they had a few more and I bought, and before you know it, I had it complete. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, never had Devastator complete. So I just started with that. And then I'm like, hey, I'm going to start buying He-Man because we had He-Man. And then G.I. Joe. And then what started happening with me, I started regressing to my first love, which was then Star Wars. And I started adding Star Wars. And before you know it, I mean, you see in the background.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see on the wall. Yeah. Were you, so you're a Kenner fan with the figurines, or were you in the Black Series more?
No, I went strictly vintage on the Star Wars. My brother's given me here stuff in that, but I started buying a lot of stuff like any collector. You start buying a lot of things. And before you know it, you come into your collection room and it's not even fun. Because you got it becomes, you can become a hoarder pretty quickly in the collecting system,
Yeah, I know.
And you almost have to pump the brakes, or you almost have to evolve with your collection too. And so it's one of the reasons why we did the toy show. I just started accumulating a lot of stuff, and I was having a hard time also getting rid of the stuff because I'm like, I don't want to let go. And I started doing a few trades with some of the toy shops. Started getting credit. I'm like, I think I can do this. And then, they would give me credit, and then I would get a few pieces that I wanted, and I don't regret my trades. But then I would see them displayed and the price. I'm like, wait, you're selling this for that? I was like, wait a minute. Then I'm like, maybe I should do a toy show. Maybe I can sell some. I need to get rid of the Funkos anyway. And that's how the toy show came about.
Right.
So I got rid of a lot of the modern stuff and stick to vintage and 3 lines, which is Star Wars, Transformers, He-Man, and I do have some G.I. Joe.
Gotcha.
Vintage, but just because you want to have more than one line, because especially when you get, as everybody knows, the expensive pieces.
Yeah.
If you don't have the money, but if you have another line, you see another piece. Oh, I can afford that one. I'm not there with the one I don't have. I need, but I'll get this one, and that's why I have 3 lines, because I can always. Every show I go, at least I'll come up with one thing. Maybe not the one that I want, but at least one to add to the collection.
Right, I got you.
I said, when we started with music, so I can say from a kid, I still have my CDs from back in the day. Still have most of my cassettes from back in the day. I haven't gotten rid of those.
No, I'm a hoarder for that too.
So I can say I've been collecting for a while. It's never been like for me, it was just buying music, or buying my first guitar. I bought my first guitar on Finger Hut.
Oh wow. Okay.
And payments, yeah. And my mom actually ended up finishing the payments.
Okay.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Bought my first electric guitar, and I was just teaching myself. But I always been a bit of a collector. I think we all are in a sense when we're kids. But I think it just when we get older now, we got more money. And they just get more expensive and cooler.
Exactly. So let me, and I'm going to reflect the question to you, Eric. So the question was, how long have you been collecting? And then also, I'm going to segue to the next question also. What are some of the places you like to go toy hunting?
So, you guys were saying, how you guys started. For me, it was actually a little bit different. When I was married, I'm divorced now. But when I was married, it was backwards for me. For some reason, I had let go a lot of collecting at that time. I had focused on kind of being a parent. So I had put a lot of my stuff was kind of just sitting in a box, and my ex was kind of one of those people that didn't really support it. Kind of you kind of poke fun at it a little bit. Oh, you're over here playing with toys, and I'm like, I'm like, these are things from my childhood, but this year or the other, but so a lot of that stuff for me had kind of gone to the wayside, right? So when I had when we had split, I was at that time focusing a lot on work and then spending a lot of time with my daughter. So, as an adult, you're now taking your kid to the toy aisle.
Right.
And so now I'm at the toy aisle looking with my daughter, and I'm just like, dude, some of these things look kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
they didn't look like this when I was little. So you start like looking at these, and I'm like, oh wow, like these are the new X-Men figures. I'm like mine only had like 5 points of articulation. Like these things have like 20. So you
Yeah.
start looking at them, and you're like, that's kind of cool. Like, you know what? I'm gonna get her a couple things. I'm gonna grab one thing for myself. And then I started picking up a couple little things here and there, and then I really dabbled into like comic books because I used to have a lot of comic books when I was younger. And I'd get friends who were like, why are you collecting that? I'm like, why not? Like, I can do whatever I want now. Like, no one's telling me what I can and can't buy. So I'm like, I'm just gonna buy whatever the hell I want now. Like my brother said, you got adult money now. So you start looking at it, and I started collecting comics, and then I got into some figures, and then I started just picking up things that were cool. And like I said, it just kind of grew from there, especially because my daughter, being little, she was, we went to watch like every Star Wars movie that came out in the theater. When Transformers would come out, we'd go and watch it. Anything that's like superhero, like, Disney related stuff like that, she was all into. And so, I'd go and buy stuff for her, buy stuff for me. So it became a thing that me and my daughter do together.
Right.
So we'd go like little
Father-daughter
toy
day.
hunting here and there. Yeah. So it became our little thing too. And so that's kind of like what started doing that. I just recently found these ones for my daughter because she's really into the Spider-Verse movie.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, nope, now I gotta go find those for her. So I picked them up, and that's kind of how like as an adult, the collecting progressed for me. It turned into, like my brother said, buying things that were like from our childhood. Regardless of how we grew up, there was still a bunch of really good moments, and a lot of them I remember them being around my brother and my other cousins and stuff when we would play with our toys. So it was just one of those things that collecting them. I know to people who aren't in the collecting world, they think that you're just a grown adult sitting somewhere in a room like playing with toys, but in reality you're collecting them, you're researching things, you're looking up prices, you're looking up variants, you're looking up origins of where some of those toys came up. You find out that some of them actually came from a different line, like everything to do with Transformers.
Right.
Obviously it's all Takara, Diaclone, things like that. So those are the things that all of a sudden you start finding interesting. You're like, wow, I didn't know that when I was little. Like, that was,
because
I
of
never even looked
education.
at the fact that some of them say Takara. Like, and, those are figures that we had. I'm like, I never saw that. So you start looking at all of those things, and then that starts piquing an interest. And I figured, what's a better hobby? Some people go out there, clubbing and drinking and whatnot. I'm like, my hobby tends to be a little bit more innocent. I go out and look up, figures and collectibles, comics, cards, and just small things like that just bring me joy, without having to do anything. Yeah, I would say overly dangerous or stupid, but I just tend to find that for me being something that brought me a little bit of nostalgic and joy. It just reminded me of different times before all the responsibilities of being an adult and paying bills.
Right.
So you start thinking about all those things that just when you were little, you only focused on when you came home from school, watching the cartoons that were on TV, Saturday mornings, obviously, all your favorite cartoons and all the things that you always wanted, all the commercials, all the best commercials were on during that time, so for all the figures and everything that you wanted to collect. But yeah, those were the things that started, like bringing me back into the collecting world. And even better, the fact that I got a chance to share them like with my daughter. So she has a little collection of things, and she has a small collection like My Hero Academia, Naruto. She's into some Pokemon stuff. Anything to do with some Marvel movies or even Star Wars figures. She really likes the Mandalorian figures. So it's something that we both got into together. I mean, when I took her to Disneyland, she was dressed as Captain Phasma. We went to Comic Con. She was Black Panther because that was one of her favorite movies.
Right.
Everyone kept telling me, your little boy looks so cute. I'm like, that's my daughter. She's Black Panther at Comic Con. People were taking pictures with her. So it's just something that for me kind of like progressed with that because I was able to do that with her.
Actually, I was going to say she took the mantle before Shuri did.
Yeah.
That's when I took her to the Comic Con. I was there, and she would take off the mask, and they realized it's a little girl, and they were like, everybody, that is so cool that it's a girl that did do Black Panther, not knowing in hindsight that in Wakanda forever, it would be a woman, that takes over, the
That's
mantle. But
that's funny you said that because when I met you both, remember I was getting that Batmobile,
Yeah.
and then my daughter wanted. So what we did is we got her the Batmobile, and then I actually painted it for her purple because she's calling it the Catmobile. Said it that way. So so one of her favorite colors is lavender purple. So I painted it purple for her, and then now she got her Shuri because she has the outfit with Shuri wearing the purple jogging suit. I think remember that was the Titans or not Titan size, that's Transformers, but the 12-inch one. I got her in there, so that's what she's doing with that. So I can
nice.
understand and relate. So definitely. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you this question too. So, with collecting, as far as like places that you like to go, online, eBay, or brick and mortar, what would you prefer and why?
I tend to prefer brick and mortar
Mhm.
because I can see it up front. I can see it up close.
Mhm.
You can look at the color and everything on it. You can see if while you're looking at the figures and whatnot if it looks really brittle.
Right,
Um,
right.
There's some stuff you just don't want mailed. Our friend Ismael can attest to that when you had a dino saucer mailed out and it arrived in pieces. Regardless of how much care some people put into it, some of these figures are very old and brittle because it's
Right.
made of plastic. After a certain amount of time, plastic does start to deteriorate. So
Right.
it got into you can see it. For me personally, I like to go see it. When it comes to like hunting toys, I definitely like to be able to go out and take a look. It's a little bit more exciting, I think.
Mhm.
I'll swing by antique stores because that's when you get somebody who is just literally getting rid of everything and
Right,
they'll just
estate
put it all
sales.
out there. Yeah, so yeah, exactly, things like that. Garage sales. I don't run into as many cool things on garage sales, but I do like to go to the antique stores, old vintage stores and stuff like that, and then you'll sometimes run into like a pile of comic books, a couple figures sitting over here, some of those old Tonka trucks. I mean, some collectors are really into those. Some pieces I literally just pick them up because I know other collectors are into them, and I just plan on kind of like picking them up and either using them for trade or selling them so I can now keep funding the hobby.
Right, exactly. Okay. And what about you, Sal?
Mine's a little bit hard because I've gotten lucky on eBay and online stores and brick and mortar, so it's kind of hard for me. I try to look for the best deal if I can. Well, now now that I'm getting more involved and I've become more patient with certain pieces, because at first you want to buy everything because you don't have that, so you buy in bulk in a sense, and you don't care about the price if you have the money. But then after a while, you're like, man, I'm spending a lot of money that if I could have waited, I could have gotten this piece for this price. And so I mean, obviously brick and mortar, I would favor it more because you get to see the piece, you get to see the toy. You do a toy, you go to a toy show, you get to see it there for what it is.
Right.
There's always that risk, but I'm always looking for that piece. Like sometimes, as you get educated with the toy lines that you do, some people don't know what they have.
Right.
And they'll put it, some people will put it at an astronomical price because you think you have something and no, you don't.
Right.
Or
it's a
then
KO.
some people
and they don't
have
know.
something and they don't know what they have. Like the
true.
prime example, I found 2 10-back hardhead Raphaels carded at Zia's.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, sitting there. And
Interesting.
and I've got them
And
for
cheap,
pretty good price. And there's one, for example, they did with they had a cardboard display that came, which is a little bit rare. Not too rare, but you don't find it. And they had it sitting there, and they gave me $300 for it.
Wow.
Credit.
Yeah.
I only paid like a third of that price for it.
Exactly.
Because I saw it, I thought it was a reissue, and then I'm like, and if it wasn't for watching, the toy, like some of these toy shows, right? Like the toy store next door, that I found out about these turtles with the display, cardboard that some of them came. And I'm like, and when I saw it, and I told the guy, hey, they had it up high, and I'm like, and I'm not, I'm nearsighted, even with glass, I was like, is that a reissue? Let me see it.
Yeah.
And then I saw that little sticker that came with the display, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I just saw the show.
Yep.
This was meant to be. And you're selling
Yep.
it for this much? I'm taking it. I'm
Yep.
taking it.
Yeah.
And yes. And sometimes, as we all know, all collectors, after a while, you become seasoned. You look for the best deal. You know sooner or later that piece is going to pop up again. And you get it. There are some pieces, too, that you're like he was saying, we were at an antique store in Mesa.
Yeah.
And there was this R2D2 from 1975 remote control. And they had it for $40, box and everything, 1979. And I passed it up. That thing's worth like $300-400.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I've done something like that where I went to the antique shop on Apache right there in Tempe. You know what I'm talking about? Right by the Filibertos over there. And man, I saw a mint in a box. It was two. It was Serpentor with everything. I mean, the whole thing. I'm sitting here like, I had
Air
Serpentor.
chariot.
Yeah, and I was like, what? He had the Serpentor, had the ship, the airship, and everything, or the hovercraft, whatever. And then they had, I think it was Destro and his tank. He had a lot of stuff in mint box. Wasn't reissue. It was the official. And I looked at the date. I looked at, even looked at the UPC code, and I was like, damn, I just left. Came back 3 days later, gone. And I was like, damn. And I go everywhere. I'm like you. Speaking of that too, I want to. That's going to bring me to another question as well. Have you ever traveled abroad with toy hunting?
Ooh, not yet.
Okay.
Different states.
Well, we did when my brother wasn't, because we travel a lot in Texas, we got family there. That's where we lived. And when my brother was into comics, and in one of those trips, we did go to a comic, like a couple comic book stores. We picked up a few comics, but this was before we actually got into we were seriously collecting vintage toys. So now we're chomping at the bit. We went to California a couple of weeks ago, and we did buy a few stuff there. But so that you could say we have now done our first trip, outside of Arizona. But we're chomping at the bit to go to Texas or to go back to Chicago with not only see family, but to visit some of the stores over there, and just I envisioned some sort of blog where we're, we're traveling down the roads, and searching for treasures, travel, because the California trip, it was obviously my brother and me with Ismael, Space Comics, and Carbo Comics, another guy. So they're bloggers too. So we went and we had a great time because it's not just we're talking about toys. We're also being guys, just having fun,
Exactly,
and
having fun, getting out.
Just getting out. We just left for, it was just a day, but
Right.
just to get out, get out of the house, just to get out of town for a day. It was a lot of, we were driving a lot, but it was, like I said, it was fun. So doing it as a group with other collectors, yes. Count me
The
in.
ride home was a lot more packed than the ride there.
Yeah.
Because everyone came back with stuff.
Yeah, we picked up some pieces in some of these stores.
Yeah.
They gave us some pretty good deals that I wasn't expecting, and they were very accommodating, and I feel so blessed,
Right.
to be part of the community because it's unique,
It's interesting that you said that because now it's going to, again, we're going to go with this one. This one is in 5 years from now. So we're talking 2028. Where do you see toy hunting and collecting evolving into?
Ooh. That's interesting because I never really, I don't never look at it as a whole because I it's been part of my life, just like with music, so I'm interested to see, because I hope it doesn't turn into tattoos.
Oh yeah.
Remember, it seems like it's cooler not to have them because everybody has them.
Right.
I remember Dennis Rodman was the first one, and then before you know it, every MMA player has a sleeve or
Yeah.
whole body,
Like Allen Iverson with the braids.
yeah, like he was the first, like,
Yep.
because that was what he was,
Yep.
like that was his personality. That's part of his, image, like the tongue out with Michael Jordan, or the poses with Desmond Howard, the Heisman pose. Everybody had, but now it seems like everybody does it to do it, and I do see some people now getting into collecting. I'm not shaming people. This is not because
Yeah.
collecting. You collect
No.
what you want. That is not. But I see more people in, like, it's like flooded in
Yeah.
a sense, where it's
I
not
agree with
like unique, where people kind of looked at you, oh, you collect toys, that's cute, like his ex-wife,
Yeah.
now it's
Yeah.
become mainstream.
Mhm.
So I hope it goes into good direction. I hope it doesn't get
Saturated.
saturated too much, because it just takes the fun out of it. I do want the community to grow, but I don't want to get it, like I said, tattoos. It just becomes, everybody has them, and after a while you're like, why am I getting tattoos? Everybody has them.
Right.
Might as well not have them. See, I'm more unique without them
Right.
than I am with them. But
What
it'd be
about you,
interesting.
Eric? What do you think?
I don't know. Well, you know what, man, I know I'm probably gonna piss off some people saying this. I'm hoping
Okay.
in 5 years I don't run into like so many damn Funko Pops. Jesus Christ,
Oh,
they're everywhere.
hey man,
I mean,
talking about
I'm not
Funko collector here.
I'm not knocking Funko collectors. If that's what you into, you're into. But
Yeah.
man, everywhere you go, it's like if there's 12 posts of like collectors and vendors,
Yeah.
like 7 of them are Funkos. And I'm just
Yeah,
like up to
nice.
my. I
Have to
mean,
fix that?
Funko did amazing when it comes to the licensing. They
Right.
have every license out there. So
Right.
I'm not knocking their hustle. They make money. There's Funkos everywhere, up to my eyeballs in Funkos. I see them everywhere. But I'm afraid that that people that something like that can kind of mess up the community a little bit, because you're gonna get people to the point where they're just gonna either dump everything, and it's gonna be like Beanie Babies where you see them everywhere. People like just giving them away. And so I'm kind of hoping in 5 years I don't see as many Funkos. I'm not wishing the company to go away. I'm just saying it's just if I can go a day without seeing a bobblehead of something, then I'm good. And the one thing I hope doesn't happen is you're getting, as my brother said, a lot of new people getting into like the collecting, right?
Yeah.
And some of them are coming up on really good deals,
Mhm.
and then they turn around and they try to like inflate the price like crazy. Like
Right.
some stuff I see online,
Yeah.
when it comes to like scalpers,
Yeah. I hate that.
I wanted to get the McFarlane, the 89 Batmobile. Or regular prices, like I think 60-70 bucks, whatever. Right now I can't find anything below 150. I'm sorry, I'm not paying 150 for that. As much
No,
as I want it,
exactly.
I'm not gonna
Right.
pay that. It's not worth that much to me for that price. It's just, and then sometimes you get some of the newer collectors who get their hands on a certain Star Wars piece. I'm seeing regular $20-$30 Boba Fett's trying to sell for $150 incomplete, and I'm just thinking, like, I don't think you really know what it's worth, and I think some people aren't really doing their research. I'm not gonna lie, in the very beginning when I first got into it, there was a couple things that I tried to sell that I overpriced like crazy, thinking
Right.
I was gonna get rich on something.
Right.
And I learned my lesson. I definitely got a couple comments from people going like, what the hell? But I mean, I was new into it, but I listened to that criticism, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, who's gonna pay that price for this right now? So
you improved from there.
yeah. So I learned from it, but there's a lot of like collectors right now, or new collectors, or I would say more vendors, that just get something and they're priced, in my opinion, insanely too high. And at that price,
Yeah,
like
if it's
I've been
Star
to
Wars,
certain places
they just punch you.
where you see certain figures that are they're just overpriced, and they've been there for years, and they're
Right.
not going to sell. They're not
Right.
going to sell that at that price.
Right.
You put it at a good competitive price, a collector is going to scoop it up fast. You won't be able to keep certain products on your shelf for sure. But like we went to on this trip that we recently went to, we wanted to check it out because we had heard so much about it, and I'm not knocking the place, but like, we've been to Frankensons.
No, I haven't.
It's a huge place. I mean, it's amazing because it's so big.
Okay.
But there's so many things that I saw there that I thought were awesome that
Yeah.
were just, in my opinion, this is personal opinion, way too overpriced.
Yeah, I understand.
I ended up walking away with almost nothing from that place just because I'm like, I'm not gonna pay that. I can just wait a little bit longer, find it somewhere else cheaper. Because as much as we collect some pieces that we have spent some money on,
Yeah.
I'm made of money. I got other responsibilities. So, if I don't have to pay $150, I'm not gonna pay $150. And if I can just be
Right.
patient and find it later for far less, then I'm just gonna be patient. At one point or another, I'm gonna find it. So that's kind of how it is with most of the stuff that I've picked up. It was something I wanted in the very beginning, but just figured I'd wait a little bit, and eventually it came to hand. So
Agreed, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. That's actually interesting you said that, because I went through a situation like that twice. Dion was there firsthand. First time was we went to a store about a week ago. He's never been there. I'm not going to say the name, but it's locally. You kind of would know. Parking lot horrible. I'm just tired of it, and I'm like you. I just had to say that I'm no disrespect to Funko Pop collectors. I have a friend I used to work with. That's all he live and die by, which is fine. Me personally, I don't want to see no more big head, little body figurines. That's it. I'm sorry. I mean, if I'm going to collect a figure, if I see, for example, if I go in Walmart and I see a Kobe Bryant or a LeBron James next to a Biggie Funko in the collector section, I'm going to kill someone. That's all I got to say. Enough said. I don't want to say nothing else. Okay, that's all I got to say about that. But I'm going to in that one. I got a question. I got another one. All right. I mean, I got some more questions with y'all. Are you a Marvel or a DC fan? And who is your favorite comic book artist or comic book writer? Whoever want to answer.
me personally, I'm a little bit of both. I have a lot more Marvel comics because when it comes to DC, it's Batman. Batman's my dude.
Right.
So when it comes to DC, it's Batman, and I have some Superman stuff too, because who doesn't have anything Superman.
Right.
But for me, it's Batman. I loved Batman. It was like one of my first, experiences with comic book movies, the '89 Batman film. So Batman for me was was like a major intro into a lot of this. So Batman, when it comes to DC, Batman. When it comes to Marvel, for me it was X-Men. I was a huge X-Men fan just because of the amount of characters that X-Men has. Wolverine always being my favorite. I don't know if it was because I was short and always ill-tempered, but that was my favorite character. So it's just I always found the diversity in the Marvel world a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because it just seems to me like that there's not as much of a diverse field, or maybe I just wasn't as versed into DC. But for me, there was more diversity in Marvel. Right. So when it came to that, I mean, I was into that. When it came to like artists, well, there's Jim Lee. Jim Lee did Marvel and DC. He is, mainly taking over DC now, but he had that huge X-Men run. Todd McFarlane, obviously. Liefeld. Greg Capullo.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some huge artists. I mean, Jesus. I mean, I don't have anything original, but I mean, when you start looking back at the old school stuff, you got Steve Ditko, John Romita Sr. and Jr.
Rest in peace. Yep.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I know that one just recently happened, but I mean, there's so many artists that Jack Kirby, that just kind of like when you look. I mean, I love the old school comic books because it's mainly the covers that got me into collecting comics, because it's what you see first. So if I saw a really cool looking cover, I wanted it. I didn't care if the story in there sucked. I just thought it looked awesome. Right. So I started picking up anything that I thought had awesome covers. And that's where for me it went to. And I didn't know about the artists until like later. I most of the time I wasn't even paying attention to the fact that their signature was on there. I just thought, oh, I freaking love the way this Spider-Man looks. And you find out that that's Todd McFarlane, because he repeats some of those poses when it comes to like Spawn. Yeah. But yeah, I would say, if I'm looking at the ones that I grew up with the most, would probably be Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, probably the two top ones. Yeah. I know there's a lot of people who know a lot more artists, but I grew up in the comic book world, and it was in the early 90s. So
Right.
that was literally, everybody that opened up Image who had left Marvel was basically, doing that. So yeah, for sure those guys.
Definitely, I respect that.
For me,
What about
I'm
yourself?
I'm not like, to be honest, and this is where a lot of the comic probably book readers are really gonna hate me. I grew up in the '80s with physical toys, so I never really got into comic books. I got into comic books with my brother because he got into it, and I support my brother. So I don't have, like, I've always loved Superman. Christopher Reeve for me, was Superman, and I would see back in the day the black and white, what is it, George Reeves Superman.
Yeah.
And for a minute there, I was collecting every Superman logo T-shirt I could find. I had, like, my brother can tell you, I had different ones. I would just buy Superman just because, yes.
You had underoos?
Oh, yes. Back in the day as a kid,
little
Batman, Superman,
He-Man, Transformers.
or wearing the Ben
We're little.
Cooper, Halloween costumes.
Are the ones that
You know,
cut your eyes.
I like growing up, the Justice League, the Justice Friends.
Yeah. Oh, Super Friends.
I thought
Yes.
Superman and Friends. I thought the cartoon sucked.
Wow.
I
Interesting.
for
That's good.
DC, I love the Spider-Man, Firestar, and Iceman series, Spider-Man and Friends. That to
Yeah.
me was a better. I thought, Superman and Friends, just knowing that Casey Kasem was doing Robin or one, I knew right off the bat, like, oh my God, that's Casey Kasem.
Yep.
So I
Top
was
four.
never really into DC.
Wasn't he also in Scooby Doo? Casey Kasem.
Yeah, he was Scooby Doo. He was Shaggy or Scooby, one of those.
Yeah.
But I know I'm probably gonna get murdered being a Superman fan, because Superman. But as I got older, I relate a lot to Daredevil.
Okay.
I wear glasses. I'm half
Yeah.
blind,
Yeah.
and I'm in the legal field. and I'm in the legal field, so
Right.
I have I do have a Daredevil tattoo, just because I related. Now that with the popularity of with the movies and everything, and with
Yeah.
my brother, I started reading, like, I like Frank Miller's style.
Yeah.
And so my brother got me, like, the whole run, the Frank Miller run of Daredevil. And I've collected myself. Some, and I have, like, a whole run of, like, New Mutants and X-Force. But
Yeah.
I'm not the comic, but, like, anytime when it comes to questions about comics, I defer to my brother because he's more knowledgeable.
Oh yeah.
I have
no,
a few that, like I said, I'm looking at down here, a couple cases with some.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not my strong. But I like Frank Miller. I like Todd McFarlane. My brother's introduced me to Jim Lee and stuff like that he grew up, and I'm like, oh wow, somebody that's not into comic books, they all kind of look the same, but you see the differences, but you don't pay attention to the detail. It takes, but once you start talking to, like, my brother that's into it, he starts showing you a little, like, and then you're like, oh, okay, I see now.
Now you catch it.
More versed. Yeah, you start
Yeah.
getting more versed in it. But yeah, comic books, I wouldn't say that's my weakest point when it comes to the collecting thing. I probably would not know if that's why me and my brother, when we go, hunting, I have them because we help each other out. I'm more versed
right.
on certain lines, and he's more versed on certain things, and we
Right.
kind of feed off each other,
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
can
he's a
respect
comic book guy, so I'll let him lead off with that.
Let me ask you this: would you be a villain if you had an opportunity? You're artist or writer and everything. Would you be a villain or a hero? And what powers would your character have? And what's your weaknesses?
Ooh.
I've always been a huge fan of the villains. In everything that I'm into, I always find the villains, like, way more interesting. Well, in the case of Batman, I've always been more of a Batman fan. But there's something about good villains, whether it be in movies or comic books or even some of the cartoons, that just I just always found way more intriguing. When it comes to, like, the villains, I always found like the Riddler, Joker, obviously Bane.
Right.
Found them super interesting. Their whole motivation.
Right.
When it comes to other villains, like Magneto, um, Apocalypse, I just always found their designs. No, like I'm more of a everyone was rooting for Luke Skywalker. I was rooting for Darth Vader. I
Yeah.
was, I was not even so much the Emperor. I wanted Darth Vader to just win. And I'm like, that dude would rule the galaxy, and I'd be happy with that.
Yep.
I've always been a more villainous fan. So like, in GI Joe, I collect more Cobra than I do GI Joe.
Gotcha.
Just I always found the villains. I have in the Transformer stuff that I have more Decepticons than I do Autobots, just because I always found the villains like Shockwave, Soundwave, like so cool and interesting. And if
Right.
it was a hero, it's one that used to be a villain that became like a hero. So I tend to find villains a lot more interesting when it comes to like some in most media. I don't know, powers. Jesus. Whew. That one's tricky because you have a lot of villains with a lot of different powers. Magneto being one of them. I mean, geez.
Magnetism.
When you have power and dominion over like electricity and magnetism, I mean, Jesus, what can't you control and manipulate at that point? Or even like Apocalypse, he controls technology,
Right.
and he has matter manipulation. So
And size.
size, Dark Phoenix, she's just got cosmic level power. I mean, if it were to be like a power like that, Jesus, you can take over the universe with anything like that.
And what's
So
your
I
weakness?
would say, weakness. I don't know. It seems that most of these villains tend to be very antisocial. So I would say having to go out in public would probably be like a huge weakness for them. It's probably why they want to destroy everything. Just because everyone bothers them, I guess. But I don't know. Weakness.
They didn't have Facebook back then for them.
It's just exactly. There wasn't social media to give them bad comments to make them go away.
Brad, can you imagine a Magneto Facebook? What it would look like?
Oh god.
You log
Would he have hashtag whatever he would announce that he was, destroying
Yeah.
the city?
Gets on Twitter what he's about to go and do.
Yeah.
I don't know, weaknesses. I don't know. It's just sometimes when you look at like the superhero world or whatnot, sometimes you find like that the weakness is so like, I don't know, unoriginal. In some cases, Superman is like the superpowers of everything, but like
Rock
the one
on
thing
his
that brings
planet.
him down is this little tiny rock.
From his planet.
That apparently
Yep.
is that from his planet that apparently his planet is covered in, and somehow it manages to get here on Earth, like in enough quantities that it could threaten him. It's kind of insane, So
sorry, I'm
you
laughing at
start
you.
thinking to yourself, like when it comes to like some of the weaknesses, I can, it's never actually thought about like what weaknesses would be like comparable, but I mean.
Hey, I
It's-
think
it's hard,
Superman
because
is
once
a
they have-
reinvention of Jesus.
Mm.
That's
Look at
true.
the story.
Yeah, the Man of Tomorrow. Yeah, I remember.
He
Remember
is-
that?
Yeah.
He died and was resurrected.
Multiple times.
The
Sent
only
by
son of
his,
his
his
planet
only son sent by his father.
Yep.
to save us.
The creators of Superman were two Jewish guys.
Yeah, that's legal. Yep.
Um,
I'm not
he is
laughing, but
Jesus.
that's
I mean,
funny.
He is like I said, it's just a theory.
Yeah.
For me, it's a retelling of Jesus' story.
Yeah.
He stands
Oh, wait a
for
minute.
honesty. Think about it.
Bro, you just said it. Remember the day he left the tomb. Remember the whole casket moved. They were like, the body's not there no more. Like 3 days later. Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
That's good. That's actually episode 9 for us.
Yeah. Before you got online, Eric, we were talking about history, about some of the untold stories of what actually history is,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're already counting all the podcasts we're gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
Music.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna have some fun, because especially the dynamics of how we are all talking. I really can't wait to go hunting with you all. Definitely.
Yeah.
I got to make that a trip. I got to go like, hey, we can't just let's go to stores in Phoenix. I mean, we could do that. That's easy. But
Yeah.
I got to do at least say, let's go to Tucson, let's go to Flag, go to San Diego, LA. That's a good day trip to have fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm
Oh, and in
definitely we're
Texas.
up for it.
I've never hunted in Texas in my life. So now you really got me like, oh yeah, big ass country.
Texas has some good spots.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's interesting to actually see when you see other people's, other YouTubers where they go different states. Prices vary from state to state, or from the side of the country you're in. I noticed that like there's some places like you're selling that for that. I'm like, I need to go over there. That's
Oh my
Certain
God.
collectibles that you won't find here that you'll find somewhere else.
Yes. Like when I went to Fan Fusion, I met a lot of sellers from California. And when I met the sellers from California, they were selling stuff here that I have not seen here, especially being a Robotech fan. And I bought a, what was it? The Robotech Big Giant Book. I have it. Basically, it's the one of the figures, and it's the one who died, the one who was with Max, and it was in the first season. Max was the lieutenant, and he had the other guy that was under Rick Hunter. He died, got killed, and then but the guy was selling it, and it was only missing the gun itself, the UN Spacey gun. When I saw that, I was like, "How much?" So, oh, that's 80. Dude, if I had the gun, it's 250 on eBay. Okay, I'll buy it. And I'm like, hey, I'm keeping this for myself. I gotta ask you a question though. Sorry, I didn't mean to deflect to that. If you have the option to make it a movie, would you rather have your character have his own show or a cartoon?
You mean like a movie, like cartoon movie, or
You can. So, for example, okay, let's say you got Spider-Man, you got a whole season. That's you. That's you, the main character. Did you want a whole season, or do you want a movie to be based on live action or a cartoon movie? What would you like to have?
I don't know. It seems like the movies tend to have a little bit more success, but I like the TV series because you get to flush out the character a lot better.
Right.
You get to introduce other back characters that most people probably wouldn't know, and you get to introduce a lot more detail into certain characters, especially like if you want to do like a telling of their origin. Then I would say in a TV series they can definitely do a lot more. If they were to like say take for example the Mandalorian, if they would have done just a Mandalorian movie, not exactly sure how much of like the Grogu and the Mandalorian they would have been able to compress into an hour and a half, 2 hour long movie.
Right, that's true.
Opposed to like season, the first season where you get 9, give or take, about 40-minute episodes to flush out a character. I think that's one of the things that led to like its popularity. Obviously, as they become more popular and they start adding in more characters, now you have less character development for certain characters. So it tends to start, boring fans. But like if you look at any really, really good show, I think it's that character development that really wraps people up. And you can't really get it with a movie. If you were to do a movie, it has to be on something that's already been established for a while, where a lot of people know the history behind it.
Yeah.
So that way you can just get to the action. So because I mean, think about like even like Infinity War and Endgame. If they would have came out with those movies prior to coming up with like the other 20 years before of all that backstory, a lot of people probably wouldn't have gotten it, and it probably wouldn't have been as big as it got. Just because a lot of people wouldn't have known the backstory of all these characters. It'll be probably like, where the hell are they all coming from?
Right.
So a lot of people, it probably would have still been a hit, but it would have been definitely a little bit, not as commercial as it became. It would have been a hit with the fans. But I think the fact that they drew it out for as long as they did to flush out, a large amount of the characters is what made it like bigger. So I think when it comes to like a character, probably a series gives you an idea to get a better deal for that character than it would be like
But
for
this is your character though. This is you.
I would say the same thing. Series.
Okay.
Series would give a better idea. I mean, if you met me within an hour and a half, you might think I'm an asshole. You get to know me for a little while longer, you like me better.
Okay, I got you. So by the time we got to episode 6 and 7, we know a lot more now about Eric and everything. Yeah, I got you.
Exactly.
All right. What about you, Sal? What would you like?
Well, knowing my personality, I would do a movie just because get it over with. Do my 2 hours, boom. But
You want live action or a cartoon?
See everything, a series, too. So it depends.
Okay.
I'm a Gemini, You know.
Oh,
So
happy belated birthday then, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, May. But I would.
Oh,
I don't know. I'll be jumping back and forth. That's the thing. I can't make up my mind. You know. Just because I don't like being the center of attention.
Mhm.
So it would be weird. That's why I'd be like, do a movie. Here it is. Here's the synopsis, and just get over within an hour. And let's go. You know. But
Right.
I think it would be fun doing a series. You know. I think I've led. And then I'm old, now that I'm a little bit older. I think I've led a pretty interesting life. I had to say.